Today I'm going to be talking about movies. These are kind of my favourite movies. I think now is probably a good time, like it's winter, it's getting a bit colder, we're kind of stuck inside, so it might be a good time to watch a few of these. The first movie I'm going to talk about, I want to talk about this first because if you don't watch any of the rest of this video, this is definitely the only one that you have to see. It's called Young Frankenstein and it was made in 1974. It's a Mel Brooks movie, so if you don't know who Mel Brooks is, he did Blazing Saddles as well. And Young Frankenstein is kind of what it says in the tin. So it's Frankenstein's grandson, who's American, is invited back to Transylvania, where Dr. Frankenstein did all his experiments trying to make monsters come alive. And young Frankenstein, who is played by Gene Wilder, who you might know as the original Willy Wonka, he goes back to Transylvania and he finds his grandfather's old books and his laboratory, and he decides to make a monster as well. And the monster is out in the town and people are obviously kind of wary of it at first. And there's one scene where the monster is up on stage dancing and it's so funny. I'd define it as kind of a dad jokes movie, but it's really good. It's in black and white. You should watch it. This is definitely like my number one you have to watch. Second movie I'm going to talk about, again, it's an older movie and it was made in 1963, and I actually talked about this in TY, so if anyone from my TY class is watching, hi. It's called The Odd Couple. It stars Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, I think is how you say his name. So they were also in Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe, so you might know them from that. And I think Walter Matthau was, is it Dennis the Menace? He was like the grumpy old man in Dennis the Menace, the next door neighbour. This movie is basically two bachelors move in together. So Oscar has been separated from his wife for a while, so he has his own apartment. And then his friend Felix is recently separated from his wife. When Felix's wife leaves him, he's like really suicidal and depressed, so obviously his friends want to take care of him. So Oscar takes him in and they live together for a while, to kind of just until Felix is okay to be by himself again. And it's just about how they get on living together. Felix is almost the housewife, so he's always trying to keep everything clean, and he's like, take your shoes off before you come in, don't put your drinks on the table without a coaster, and cleaning up behind Oscar. And then Oscar is like the typical man, like he smokes his cigars, the place is messy, he doesn't care. He has his friends over for poker night. They butt heads a lot, and it's just, again, it's kind of like slapstick dad joke comedy. Really recommend you go see that as well. Next movie I'm going to talk about is, I think it's the only animated one I have here, is Peter Pan. This is my favourite Disney movie, the cartoon version, which was made in 1953. And then I also there's a live action version which was made in 2003. Basically, Peter Pan is a boy who never grows up and he lives in Neverland, and he visits the Darling family, which is Wendy, John and Michael, and Peter takes them to Neverland to help with Captain Hook, who's the evil pirate. So this is just their story of how they get to Neverland and how they get home and why Peter doesn't want to grow up. Next movie that I want to talk about is The Dark Knight. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this and heard of it. It's the Christopher Nolan version of Batman. It's the second one in the trilogy, and it's the one where Heath Ledger is the Joker. I love this movie. I think the cinematography in it is great. The acting obviously is great. I love the storyline as well. I just think the Joker is a really good character, and Heath Ledger is my favourite Joker. Joaquin Phoenix is very good as well, but I still prefer Heath Ledger. Batman is the only superhero kind of movie that I like. I don't mind Iron Man either, but Batman is definitely my favourite. That's probably just because when I was younger and I was with my childminder, her kids used to play with Batman toys, so I played with them as well, so that's probably why it's my favourite. The next movie or set of movies I'm going to talk about is the Harry Potter, I don't know how many movies there are, 8. Wow! I'm 25, almost 26, so I grew up with Harry Potter. I remember my mum and my auntie used to read them to me and my cousin, and then obviously when we got old enough we used to read them ourselves. I remember going to see the first movie. I thought it was like so magical and so cool, and I wanted to go to Hogwarts and I wanted to be a wizard. I have my Hermione wand, my Hermione wand that I got when we went to Universal. So yeah, I like Harry Potter. They're really good, especially the last few. Effects are great, cinematography is great, the storyline is great, all the characters are brilliant. It's one of, I'd say, the only set of movies where I don't think the book is better. I think the movies and the books are like on the same level for this. The next movie is very close to my heart. It's Titanic. This movie came out in 1997 and it's about the Titanic, which is a ship that was labelled unsinkable. It focuses on two main characters. Kate is posh, she's in first class. Jack won his ticket to the Titanic in a card game. He's in like third class or the lowest class, and they meet and fall in love. The ship gets hit by an iceberg. Sorry, spoiler. And it's kind of all about the sinking and everything. When I was little, no joke, I used to watch this movie every single day, and I used to have a dress that looked like one of the dresses that Rose wears in the movie. I used to think I was her. One day my uncle Peter and my auntie Maeve came over to visit and they had a present for me. I was probably 6, I'd say. On the front of the DVD or the video, it was a video at the time, there's like Kate Winslet and Leo DiCaprio and the boat in the background. So he thought it would be really nice if he put my face in instead of Kate's. So he did that, printed it off, put it on the outside of the video cover, and then gave it to me. And I started bawling crying. I thought he changed the whole movie so that I was in it instead of Rose, and I was devastated. The next movie, Leonardo DiCaprio is also in it and Tom Hanks is in it, and I'd say they're my two favourite actors. So this one is Catch Me If You Can. It's basically about Frank, who is, I think he's like 16, 17 or 18, and he starts forging checks as a pilot, a lawyer and a doctor, and he cashes his like wage checks in the banks. And this is just his story on how he started doing that, how he's continuing to do it, all the people he's tricked. Tom Hanks is the FBI agent trying to catch him. I think it's based on a true story and it spans over, I don't know, 30 or 40 years of them trying to catch each other. It's like a cat and mouse movie. The acting is brilliant, the story is brilliant, and you should definitely watch it. The next movie I'm going to talk about, it's another one with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. It's The Departed. So it's set in Boston and Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio are in it, and Jack Nicholson is in it as well. It's basically about a cop goes undercover into like an Irish gang to obviously try and get information on them. And then on the other side, there's a fella from the gang in the police as well. So it's kind of them working against each other, and obviously they don't know that person is infiltrated the police and that person has infiltrated the gang. Each of them, so Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio, are like consumed by the pressure of leading their double lives. So they have no one to confide in, and it's just a story about how that all comes to a head. The next movie is, it's kind of a similar story, so it's about people going undercover. It's American Hustle. It stars Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper, Amy Adams, and Jennifer Lawrence is in it. She's one of my favourites in it. Her acting is just brilliant. The con man Irving, played by Christian Bale, he is caught out being a con man and he's forced to work with the FBI, so he's forced to work with Bradley Cooper. And Bradley Cooper, in order to progress his career, he wants to go for like mafia people, politicians, whereas Irving, or Christian Bale, he doesn't want to do that because he knows how dangerous that can be. This is just a story of how they try and trap mob people and politicians as well to try save themselves or make their careers and lives better. Jennifer Lawrence plays Christian Bale's wife, and she's very like unstable, and she is kind of the one who puts all their plans and their mission at risk. Amy Adams plays Christian Bale's bit on the side, if you want to call it that, but then Bradley Cooper also ends up falling in love with Amy Adams as well, so it's kind of like a weird love, whatever star or whatever shape that makes. It's set in the 70s, so I love the soundtrack in this is really good. The costumes are brilliant as well, and again the cinematography is just great. The next movie I'm going to talk about also has Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence in it, and it's Silver Linings Playbook. Pat, played by Bradley Cooper, his wife cheated on him and he had like a mental break, and he bet up the fella she was cheating on him with, so he was sent to a mental institution to recover, and his mom checks him out early, kind of against medical advice, and this is just about his story of trying to integrate back into society. Jennifer Lawrence is a friend of a friend, and they get introduced at a dinner party, and her husband died. Pat, or Bradley Cooper, he really wants to get his old job back as a teacher. He wants to show his wife how good he is now so that she'll take him back. And Jennifer Lawrence convinces him that if he enters a dance competition with her, that his wife will see that and think, oh my god, he's changed so much, I want to get back with him. But Jennifer Lawrence is doing it because she fancies Bradley Cooper. It's just a story about them kind of training for that, and both of their mental health struggles as well. Like even Pat's dad, Pat Senior, who's played by Robert De Niro, he has OCD. He loves watching the Philadelphia Eagles play football, but he has to have, say, the remote controls in a certain order here, and Pat has to wear a certain number jersey. They all have mental health struggles, and I just think it's a really good movie, really well written and acted. The next movie I'm going to talk about won't be a surprise to some people. It's The Wind That Shakes the Barley. I love Cillian Murphy. He's Irish, he's from Cork, and this movie is also set in Cork as well, and it's about two brothers during the Irish Civil War, which was 1919 to 1921. One of them is on one side and the other one's on the other side, so it's like two brothers fighting against each other. It's beautifully filmed. The scenery in the movie is really nice because it's in Ireland. It's a good one to watch if you're not that familiar with, say, Irish history, because it does show the extent to which the fight for a republic separated communities and even families in this case. Basically, one side wants a complete Irish republic, and then the other side will kind of settle for what the British are offering because they don't want to fight anymore. They just want to have peace. Yeah, it's a really good movie. Really recommend you watch that. The next movie is called Sunshine, and it also stars Cillian Murphy, and it's about this group of astronauts that have to go into space. The sun is dying and they need to go and deliver a payload or a bomb to explode the sun again so that the sun will continue to heat the earth. Then they kind of realise they don't have enough supplies to make it to the sun and back. They figure out like if there was one or two or three less people, we could make it there and back. And the movie is kind of about people's moral decisions. One of Cillian Murphy's team gets like clinically depressed and they're put on suicide watch, and there's some people that are saying let them just kill themselves because then we've more oxygen. And then there's other people that are saying no, you can't do that, like we should try to take care of them as much as possible. But before Cillian Murphy's team were sent into space, there was another team sent 7 years previous. Their mission failed, and Cillian Murphy's team actually find their space station and they dock into it and they go in and investigate and see what happened. This also gives Cillian Murphy's team a lifeline because there's an area of the ship where they have plants which makes oxygen, which would sort out Cillian Murphy's problem. The special effects in this are really good. The end of the movie is great as well. Next movie is Rush. It's basically an F1 movie. It's about James Hunt and Niki Lauda, and they're played by Chris Hemsworth plays James Hunt and Daniel Bruhl plays Niki Lauda. If any of you have ever seen videos of Niki Lauda and the way he talks, Daniel Bruhl is brilliant at acting as him. This story is obviously based on real life, so this movie follows their life on and off the track, and it's set in 1976, which was kind of their main season competing against each other. And it also shows Niki Lauda had a massive accident where like the car blew up, went on fire, and so it shows his accident and his recovery and why he recovered. It's interesting to see the difference. So James Hunt is, I'd say he's more of a passionate driver, and he's just kind of like go with the flow, like whatever happens happens, I'm just going to drive as fast as I can. Niki Lauda, he used to go and say, you need to remove this off the car, you need to remove this off the car, you need to change this to make the car lighter so I can go faster. And he used to go and say, do this, and everyone would say, no, like that's not going to work. And then they do it and the car would be 2 seconds faster. The end of the movie is really nice as well because it shows them, like in the end, they were also friends as well as rivals. The next movie is called Groundhog Day, and it stars Bill Murray, and he is a weatherman. Every year he gets sent out to Punxsutawney, I think, somewhere in America, where basically some date in February they take out a groundhog, and if he sees his shadow, that means there's a few more weeks of winter, or if he doesn't, then spring is on its way. And this is like Bill Murray's fourth year of covering this on the news, and he's just sick of it and he hates going there, and he's really grumpy and he doesn't like any of his team. He stays over, and the next day he wakes up and it's Groundhog Day again. The whole movie is him living the same day over and over again, and it's really interesting to see what he does with each day. So at the start it's kind of like all selfish stuff, so he goes and gets drunk, he eats whatever he wants, and towards the end of the movie what he's doing with the days is more selfless. So there's a homeless man that he finds dead one day, so the next day he goes back and tries to give him food and heat him up in order to stop him dying, and he keeps trying to do that. Andie MacDowell is also in it, she's his producer, but in the end he kind of falls in love with her, and he uses the repeated days to try find out as much as he can about her, so he kind of tricks her into liking him almost. I think this is a good one to watch because it's kind of like what's going on in the world now when you're stuck at home every day, you're doing the same thing. It's a similar situation. And Sky Movies Comedy, every year on Groundhog Day they play this movie for the whole day, and I'm not joking, I watch it 3 or 4 times in a row. The last movie I'm going to talk about, I'm sure most people have seen, but again I think this is probably one of my favourite movies. It's Forrest Gump. So it stars Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump, and he lives in Alabama. He isn't the smartest boy growing up. He also has to wear leg braces in order to be able to walk. He gets bullied about that. The rest of the movie is just, it's basically his whole life, but it's really funny because he's there for kind of all the major events in American history. So he's there for the civil rights movement, for the first black people being allowed to go to college. He goes to the Vietnam War. He's there for the presidencies of Kennedy and Nixon. He sees the Watergate scandal happening. When he goes to Vietnam, he meets his friend Bubba, and Bubba comes from like a shrimp fishing family, and he tells him everything about shrimp. Anyone else would kind of be like, okay, that's boring, like can you shut up about that? But Forrest is just so interested in other people, and he's really genuine in the way he deals with other people. He has no preconceptions of this is the way that person is because that's how they look like or anything like that. He treats everyone the same. But of all the amazing things that Forrest has done, like travelled to China to play ping pong, gotten like military medals off the presidents for his service and stuff, the only thing that's important to him is his childhood sweetheart Jenny. She dips in and out of the movie as he gets older, and that's all he really cares about is his mom and Jenny, and he just wants to make sure that they're okay and they're provided for. The end of the movie, it's sad, but it's really well written, and obviously like Tom Hanks is a really great actor, so it's definitely worth watching. A few quick movies I want to mention. They're not my favourites, but I still do like them. Toy Story 2, Madagascar 2, Inglourious Bastards, Airplane, and The Strangers. They're really good ones as well, so watch them. So thanks for watching. I hope this video isn't too long because it's about 40 minutes now, so I'm going to have to edit it down. Let me know what your favourite movies are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.